It's my favorite time of the week because it's film study with the one and only JonnyDel from the JonnyDel Football Academy. Let's get this show crack-a-lacking. Let's go. What's good, everybody? Welcome to These Are the Breaks, and we're going to be breaking down some of the special film from JonnyDel. So, yeah, we get to all 22, and then he goes and he gives me something totally different from some of the other stuff he does. So it's exclusive by my man, Jonny. What's going on, fam? How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling pretty good. I was on some pain medication last week, and I think I put it out on Twitter as a full warning to everybody that when I am on some pain medication, there's no telling what's going to come out of the fingers on Twitter or anything. So, but I'm off of that now. I'm good. We're good to go. So it's a good time. It always feels weird when the 49ers play on Monday night, as it feels like the whole rhythm of the week is just off, man.
That's what I think it is. I felt like I've been off, bro. Like after we finish this, I'm going off the grid. Like I'm tired. Like I don't know why I'm tired. I'm tired. So I'm gonna go off the grid for a little bit. But man, it's good to have you on. It's good to have you back. It's good to talk 49er football with you because we had a bye week, right? So we had an off week, and now we're back. The Chargers, the 49ers. I can't wait to see what it is you have to say about these two teams and how it ended up, panned out. The 49ers got the win, but I'm sure there was some stuff you watched. You were just like, cause I watched the film and I was like, missed opportunity. I'm not even talking about just in the red zone. I'm talking about period. So we'll break that down. There's one play you may not have on these clips that I have to ask you about because I just want to know if I'm right. And sometimes that's all I need, right? That's all I care about. But guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I see we got a great squad out there in the chat. You guys are the awesomest in the whole world. I make up words, so don't mind my vernacular and vocabulary. It is what it is. You're gonna get the breezy language. All right. So thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate everybody. Jonny, let's get down to it. I gotta ask you about Trent Williams and the situation that's going. It's not that it's a situation, it's just a thing on Twitter. You got the thing about him tipping off plays. Is this at first, before I ask you even about Trent, is tipping plays something typical from these offensive linemen or any other players in the NFL?
I mean, everybody's gonna do it in some way or another. I remember several years ago, that when we played the Rams one year, I think it was James Laurinaitis. It came out somewhere in an article I read that he told Frank Gore after the game that he was watching Frank's head because if he scanned the field, he knew it was going to be a run because Frank was scanning the field to pick up where his threats in the running lanes were going to be, and if he wasn't scanning the field, it was going to be a pass. And so there's things like that. I overall, when it comes to offensive linemen, most of the time, like seeing their splits and stuff, there's so much like visual noise up in there, and things that players are trying to clue into that tend to tell you more than a stance. Like, because say it's a run in a Kyle Shanahan offense, what does that tell you? That could be a run. I mean, our run game covers every square inch.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
So, that's going to tell you it's a run, but you still have to read the lineman post snapped and kind of figure out the circus to know where the ball is going. So I think they're going to be more focused on, where's Debo lined up at? Where's Christian McCaffrey lined up at? Where's the strength of the formation? Okay, now they're changing the strength of the formation right before the snap. We got to make sure that everybody's in their gaps. We have to, a lot of times there's coverage checks within defense. Most people don't know this. Like, if you come out in a 3-by-1 set, they may have cover 3 Mabel called, and then if we motion to a balance set, they're gonna check to a 2 read or a cover 2 or a 3 sky, something like that. there's going to be a coverage check going on in there. So linebackers and DBs have to be communicating those things. That will change because the coverage change will affect the run fits up front. So that has to be communicated to the linemen. Linemen have to be alert for all this. So if you have one guy on the end of the line who's going, hey, it's his leg's back, that nobody's going to be paying attention to that. So, this whole thing of like, well, is it affecting Mike McGlinchey's side? I don't see, how they're really going to effectively communicate that all the way down the line.
You
There's
you
so much more communication that goes on.
you knew I was gonna ask that next. That like if Trent is tipping, how does it affect the rest of the line? Because they're basically him tipping the play is just telling it if it's a run or a pass. Basically, that's all it is. That's all he's saying. That they're seeing when he's standing certain way or whatever, whatnot. But how often does that affect the rest of the line? Because I feel like the line has been playing rather decent this year.
Yeah, and and the other thing, like, because I saw that and I went through the game and I was going, okay, what I came away with was, yeah, but at the same point, there was a lot of plays in like straight dropbacks that it didn't matter if he was tipping it because we were already tipping it either by the situation, down and distance, second and long, third and medium, or we were emptying out the backfield. If there's no running back in the backfield, that's going to be a pass. That ain't a Jimmy Garoppolo run. So, and that was the vast majority of our drop back plays against the Chargers. So I'm sitting there going, okay, even if Trent is tipping this, we're already emptying out the backfield to give coverage checks to spread the field out. We're already in third and long. They know we're going to be passing. So, the only place I could see it possibly affecting, like, there's a question: does tipping the play cause the defense not to get faked out? I don't think so because, like, for example, if we're in play action pass situations like those, I didn't see any difference in his stance on some play action passes. I may have not been looking at it close enough, but on those, I don't think you're getting a lot of things that are faked out because I can tell you with the amount of RPOs we run that if it's being called an RPO and because those guys block like it's going to be a run and the defense starts trying to clue in on Trent's leg and Kyle sees that, he's going to be telling Jimmy, throw the freaking ball every time, don't hand it off.
Mm.
So I don't see it as something that is going to be the entire defense sells out on the run if they see something. I really think it's something. It's like I saw a guy, George Foster. He's on Twitter. It's George Foster 72. For those who don't know who George Foster is, he was drafted 20th overall in 2003 by Kyle's dad in Denver, and he had a really good thread on this in there, and he basically said it's not a big deal that every tackle in this offense, because he was talking specifically for zone blocking, that you have to change up your stance for whatever block you're making in a zone blocking scheme. Whether it's 2 point, it's down to the splits, the split of the width of your feet, whether it's certain blocks. He goes, really, if you were that detailed into it, you could look at every one of their splits and know what kind of block they were going to be running. But he's like, it in the end, because there's so many things that go on so quickly, it doesn't matter at all. That's what he said. He goes, it's not a big deal.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna talk much more about it. Like the fact that you said it's not a big deal, that's all I needed. RPOs. You mentioned RPOs. I have to ask you about the RPOs. I was on the 49ers the Red Zone podcast with Rohan yesterday, and we started talking about these RPOs, and we watched Jimmy kind of like misread at least two of them.
Two big ones.
Two big ones, right? How many RPOs did we run in the game? Because I'm just curious to see, because I just don't necessarily if we run a lot and he only missed two, then it's not a bad thing. But the two he missed were terribly,
they were big, yeah.
They were huge, right?
Yeah, they took points off the board, and what there was that specific RPO where it was the one we actually that Trey Lance got hurt on. It's the same play, but we had run it. We've been running it since week 1. We've been running it for a couple of years actually,
Okay.
but we ran that specific one 5 times in the game. There was the 2 misses. 3 of them were read properly. One was an 8-yard run down to the 2-yard line by Debo. He didn't follow Trent. That one,
Hold on to that because we got to get to that. I guess that's my next question before we
yeah.
get into your film. Yep.
Yeah. There was another one that set us up for Jimmy Garoppolo's quarterback sneak. We threw it to Christian McCaffrey. There was another one that it was a proper read, but the timing just was a little off, and we ended up not getting much on it. And then there were the 2 big misses. Then we had a couple more RPOs that weren't that exact play, but were similar. So I want to say there were 7 in the game.
Okay, so about 7 RPOs. All right, so that's a nice little dosage of the RPOs. All right, cool. Because I'm just curious, like, is that I guess my next question is that something that Jimmy has to continue to work on because he can't you can't miss.
Right.
Not
Right.
yeah.
So part of that was, now let's also give credit to the Chargers on those. Jimmy's normally pretty good on RPOs. So
Okay.
I don't want, people to come away from that saying, oh, it's just another thing that Jimmy doesn't do well.
Okay.
Normally he's pretty good on those.
Okay, I rest my case.
So what happened was the first one that was in the red zone. What they did is that they motioned Khalil Mack out. So they were doing a swap of assignments. So because the read on those is normally on the weak side or will linebacker. And he's the player that's not going to be accounted for in the blocking scheme on either end. He's not going to be accounted for in the screen game. He's not going to be accounted for in the run game. You're putting him in conflict. Where he goes, you go the opposite.
Okay.
So if he stays in, you throw the screen. If he goes out on the screen, you hand it off. And so what they did is
overload.
Right. So they ended up moving Khalil Mack. This is the one in the red zone. He flared out with Christian McCaffrey, and the will linebacker stayed in. So it changed the read. Khalil Mack was playing as the will, and the guy off the ball was going to stay inside. And so it ended up messing up the read for Jimmy. He didn't catch it. Now he needs to catch that. You got to catch that. You got to see that Khalil Mack is going out, and because if he hands it off, we get a touchdown.
You get a touchdown.
But he throws it out there. Khalil Mack is not accounted for, and he makes the tackle.
Gotcha.
The other one, they ended up bringing Derwin James down late. He was out there on the slot, and then late he came down and on a blitz. And it was another one. If Jimmy throws a screen, we're there. He didn't see Derwin coming down late. So there are unexcusable misses, but it wasn't like it was just they lined up and he just, didn't read it correctly. Like just, like it was plain as day. It's something, again, he's an NFL quarterback. He needs to read that. He's been in the system a long time. It's inexcusable. But it wasn't just like, oh, they just lined up. The Chargers were doing some stuff to mess with those reads. But though were 2 huge plays that you've got to get in the game.
All right. I think that's pretty much my last question. We can get to some film, and then we could talk a little preview about this upcoming game against the Arizona Cardinals. How's that sound?
That sounds cool.
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it. All right, let me go ahead and get this. Let me pause this. All right, and then let me get this. Actually, get this banner off, and then we can get it going. There we go. All right.
So this one, we'll see it from the all 22 first, and then it's gonna do some cut ups and stuff on the back end. And I'm so proud of myself. I've got to show us. I have notes today. So
welcome to the club, baby. Welcome to the club. All right. You want to explain what's about? What's what the looks? Okay.
So this is going to be one. It's another one of those RPOs. It's a wide zone to Mitchell, so you can play it. And you'll see the screen action, the RPO action. So you have the screen pass possible to the bottom. The guys are blocking. We hand it off to Mitchell. We get like 2 yards. Okay, we can pause it here. So this is going to be a wide zone run, is how we're blocking this up. So the guards, Banks and Brunskill, have reach blocks. So they've got to get across the face of these defensive tackles, get to the reach blocks. And then you got Brendel and Trent Williams. Trent Williams would normally be picking up number 42, who's the will linebacker. But that guy is going to flare out with Debo. And so he'll vacate. And that's where the read is. So that's why Jimmy hands it off.
So you
And
read this one right.
correct.
Okay.
And so then we're going to be able to get Trent Williams up on the free safety. And then on the edge, McGlinchey and Kittle are doing an in-out read block. So wherever that defensive end goes, if he stays out, Kittle's going to take him and push him to the sideline. And Kittle's then going to get up on a next level. Now you're going to see, I cut this up at the wrong spot. So it's going to look like it just like transports because it's going to be about a second and a half later after this when it picks up, so you can play it and we'll see where this goes. This was one that, man, it broke my heart. Okay, so it's running well, and so we pause it there. Whenever it pauses, you can pause it. Like so here, you can pause it. We have a really nice run lane set up here, right? Look at the lane that's being set up between Brunskill and Brendel.
Brendel, yeah.
Okay, and we have Trent is free to go pick up that safety. McGlinchey's doing a great job getting up on the other safety. Kittle is on the end man. He's pushing him off. They where they had paused it previous, we held the backside D end with a mesh point. So that's why he's not going to be able to run down Mitchell. Brendel has to make this. All he has to do is block that linebacker, and
that's
and
tranquil
this
too.
and just watch. Okay, he's got to get his head on the outside shoulder of that linebacker. Okay, he's got to put his head in his outside shoulder pad,
and he doesn't.
And he whisks the block. Look at that lane.
Oh my gosh!
You telling me that that's not a house call from the 26-yard line?
Wow, the plays, they're there. It always comes down to execution. I can't imagine what Kyle Shanahan is saying when they go back and watch this. Brendel.
Because play it. That's the guy who makes the tackle. So you see it'll play here.
Their linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it's not like he made a great play. He just shed the block.
Yeah. So this is the all 22 view from that moment that was frozen. There is nobody around.
I see it. This 24 is that Adderley?
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. If he makes it through that hole, he's gone. Like gone. 74 yards.
I don't think I want to watch film anymore. Tag. Wow.
Okay. So let's move on.
Wow.
It's just as fun as we go. Okay, so here's another one. We got a little counter run play here. Oh, Debo knew this one was close too.
He missed that block, didn't he?
Well,
he got on him.
So you can pause it here. So we got a counter run. So we're going to block everything down. Banks is going to pull, and he's going to kick out the end man, number 8. Juszczyk's going to lead up around inside, and Debo's got to go pick up Derwin James. Okay, that's number 3, Derwin James. That's a tough block, but what we want to do is cut this up inside, and then Mitchell, we want it to be clean so that Mitchell can choose inside or out based upon where Derwin goes. So let it roll. And then you'll pause it when it freezes again. Here we go in slow-mo. All right, pause there. Tell me that shouldn't be a huge run. We have everybody accounted for.
Everybody's accounted for.
Everybody's accounted for.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got Juice picking up number 9. You got whoever that is that Burford?
That's Burford going to kick out the end man.
And then Debo is looking square at James Jr.
Okay. The other safety has backed out. Okay. Yeah. So he's back off out of the play. He's following where Jimmy Garoppolo is rolling out to. Okay. If you pause it, right, like if you think about that, there is zero reason why that should not be an explosive run. So this is where I was kind of getting like with people saying like the LA Chargers were selling out against the run, and that's why we couldn't run. When I see everybody accounted for in the run game, that's not an issue of them selling out against the run.
Correct.
Okay. Banks needs to get his head on the inside shoulder of that out of the end man. Like because if the guy runs around you, okay, he's got to run around you and then catch Mitchell from behind. That ain't happening. Just make him go out. You got to make him go over the top of you. You can't give him the inside no matter. And now I'm not saying it's an easy block, but he's in the NFL, and this is what's being required of him. So Mitchell wants to hit this hole and immediately cut up behind Debo, but he ends up not being able to because he's going to try and he has to run through this arm tackle of number 8, and the guy ends up getting into his leg. So if you play it, you'll see it. See, there you go. So I was highlighting that. And there he goes. He gets him. He can't cut it up inside. And Debo knows, because Derwin James was the last guy between Mitchell and the end zone.
I'm not seeing what Banks didn't do. All right,
so I think this will roll back one more time. If I remember how I cut it up, it's just in slow mode. Yeah, so it'll run back and it'll play through again. So Banks, he ends up letting this end man get inside of him. So he needs to put his helmet on the guy's outside shoulder, and he ends up doing a shoulder smash with his inside shoulder. You can't do that. You've got to seal that guy off.
I see.
And it ends up being a play that goes for like 3 yards. And this is important because this was the very next play.
Oh, the sack, the naked bootleg, and Khalil Mack just read it.
Right. So you can pause this here too. So that's why these things really matter, because you're looking at an explosive play, or minimum a first down. And now it then leads to a big sack and we end up punting. So that's two plays, big runs that we punted on both of those drives.
I got you, bro.
Right.
Now, on that other play, you sure it was Banks and not Burford? Because Burford got the block.
Oh, sorry. No, that was Burford. Sorry,
it was Burford.
Yeah, it's Burford. Okay. My bad.
Sometimes
sometimes I say wrong names all the time. I know what
I'm sitting there looking
at
Banks, and I'm like, he looked like he took the guy. He went this way. Burford went that way.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep rolling.
All right.
And so this is a wide zone here to Debo. Gets tackled for
why
1 yard
game work? Here
so
we go.
Let's pause. Okay, yep. So I'll dive a little bit more into the zone blocking concepts here. So this is one. Notice it's a 5-man front. So there's been a lot made about, teams that go on 5- and 6-man fronts, and we need to be able to pass. We can't run against these. This is a 5-man front. So understand when we get to the end of this play why I again sometimes say I'm not necessarily a believer in that. So these guards are it's again Banks and Brunskill are executing reach blocks. So they've got to cross the face of these defensive tackles and seal them off. And you play it and it'll go to the next blocking assignments. And you can pause it when it gets to there. Okay. And then so Brendel and McGlinchey are going to be getting up on the second level. Now you can play it again and it's going to bring up some other funky lines here. So some explanation of these. These guys are, while what they're going to execute post snap on this play, they're not like Banks is set on blocking that defensive tackle. Brunskill's set on blocking the other defensive tackle. What they're actually responsible for is Banks is responsible for blocking the one gap player. So the player in the one gap or one hole is what's usually called. So it's the between the guard and center on the left side.
Correct.
Brunskill is responsible for the 2 gap player.
So that's the right side.
Yes. So between the guard and tackle on the right side. Brendel is responsible for the 0 gap. McGlinchey is responsible for the 4 gap. So what ends up happening is they have to read this post snap to make sure that they're blocking the correct guys. This is what the wide zone is all about. If you play, we'll see what happens if these players, because sometimes what defenses will do is they'll exchange responsibilities. So if those defensive tackles, if we can go back to that other notation, pause it on that one. The one before that.
This?
Yep, one before that one. There it is. So if that one right there. So if those defensive tackles slant across and the linebackers replace their gap, that's called that's an exchange, a post snap exchange, which teams do to mess with blocking schemes. This is what their blocking would look like. Is that they're not responsible for necessarily a man, they're responsible for a gap defender. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, so this is why the wide zone is so complex, because it takes repetition and repetition and seeing these fronts and seeing different ways of this happening, so guys don't get locked into, I'm just blocking this guy, this guy, this guy. That's more power man blocking. So you do this so that you have an answer no matter what the defense comes with.
So that makes sense, because there's plays where I would see them not get a man, but get to that gap, get to that space. Okay.
Correct.
So that
That's
makes
why
perfect sense.
it's called zone blocking. Is
That's
that
why it's called
you're
zone
blocking a
blocking.
zone.
Yeah, space.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
the center is responsible for the 0 gap zone. The guard is responsible for the 2 gap zone. And so that's how this works. Now, the next notation will be how they actually play it, and it's pretty much how they line up, and we'll see how it is. So we got that's Croft and Kittle are working again, a combo block there and a read block, and then McCaffrey. And I will say this, would be something to see. McCaffrey does a really good job blocking on this play. That was one thing I was wondering with Jeff Wilson walking out the door, because he was so good in that front as a blocker from that running back position. He does a phenomenal job on this play.
Wow.
But we're gonna get this wide zone off tackle and play it. And this one hurt too.
Whew. So Croft, here comes McCaffrey. He's going to clean up that guy.
All right. So if we pause it there, yeah. So we'll go back and look at it. So look at the lane that's set up. Look at the lane that is set up.
He's terrible, man.
There's only one guy that is not blocked. Look at the lane that is there. Now play it, and it'll rewind back. It'll rewind back. Look at the field position too. So we started on like the 25-yard line. Okay.
Brendo's got to go, bro.
There's Brendel. Okay. Now he is being held by the defensive tackle.
They should have called defensive holding right there.
But at the same point, these offensive line players are used to that. They're used to seeing that. They're used to experiencing that. He has got to get that guy's arm off of him and go get that linebacker. Okay. Because if he gets that linebacker, there is no one between Debo and the end zone.
You see the space of green pastures?
I'll show it from the old all 22
through this hole right there, bro.
Yeah, what's on the other side of it? Because that's the guy who blows the whole play up. That's what it looked like.
You're so on point, bro. Do you see that space? I didn't even need to see this view to see the space.
If that one guy gets blocked, that's
just
what happens.
One. So on my Patreon, I do a debate show with Mike from Nothing But Niners, and the topic was Kyle Shanahan overrated, and I said no. I said he's not overrated because guys fail to execute. And I will say this, it's unfortunate that it's a different guy every single time. Sometimes it's the same guy over and over again. Brendel is probably the worst offensive lineman that the 49ers have right now, which
no doubt.
Like, but it should be, right? He's never played center. He's never started at the center position before. He's never played in his system before. You think year 2, Brendel will be better?
So just think about it. So I put this out on Twitter, and some people I think were a little confused, and anybody who saw that, now this is making sense. I said if we pick up 2 blocks, we get 145 more rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And you see why. We were literally 2 Brendel blocks away from huge explosives.
Bro.
So imagine the conversation that how it is different around Kyle Shanahan if Brendel picks up these 2 blocks.
I will defend Kyle Shanahan to the day he quits coaching for the 49ers, bro. There's no way that he's at fault for this guy right there that couldn't put a helmet to the chest plate of a linebacker. We're not even talking linemen. We're talking a linebacker, bro. Our centers had got to be able to block that linebacker.
Yeah. And I mean, then now I understand that Khalil Mack, or not Khalil Mack, that Alex Mack was, flirting. Would he retire? Would
They
he
had,
not? Kind of
yeah,
a
talk
thing.
about it, bro.
But they
Talk
had to
about it.
have
They,
a better plan B than this. They
this
had to.
is,
I mean, this is because this wasn't the only play I saw from the only two plays I saw from Brendel. I saw a couple others, and and I didn't even show these in my weekly breakdown video because what I tend to
I
do,
appreciate you, bro.
is when we win, I don't like to focus on the negative because it's in the end we won. So I
I
want to
need
show
the
why
negative.
we won. But
When you do,
it's also important to look back, especially when you're seeing the noise, and I think so much gets made of our quarterback that we only focus on the quarterback plays. But we are a team that has had so many explosive runs in the past that's been a big part of our offense. And we're going, well, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And when you're seeing stuff like this, that is beyond frustrating. You're talking about three big explosive plays. And I showed several other opportunities in my breakdown video too of missed blocks. And there's like 4 or 5 others that I'm not even including at this, where it's one block away. I mean, and like you said, it wasn't the same person every time, but when you're seeing it, like, because I mean, there was one play it was Trent Williams getting bowled back. There was one play it was Banks. There was one play it was Burford. There was like 4 plays is Brendel. There was one play it was Croft. There was one play it was George Kittle. There's all of these little things in there that are keeping this run game from there. There was no real reason why our run game shouldn't have been more productive. Um, there wasn't like I was looking at this and saying, well, the Chargers were just better, or they were just selling out on the run, or they were just doing stuff defensively that really made it impossible for us to execute our run game. And when you see these things, like, I mean, literally, it's like he's there, or he's on the linebacker and he just whiffs the block, and you have a 75-yard run that's not there. That is frustrating. That makes me irritated. When the play I haven't shown, which is Jimmy missing the read on the RPO that would have been like a 50-yard touchdown. It's like the plays are there. We've got to figure out how to make these gel and execute. I don't know if it's just all the different pieces moving a little bit differently or what, and what exactly it is. It feels like if this part could come together for the offense, it's really hard to see this team losing. I mean, it's really hard when you think about that. We could easily put up 40 some points on the Chargers.
I'm gonna hit play. See what you got next.
So next we'll look at something more positive next. So this is I'm gonna talk a lot. So I wanted to pull this up because the defense played really, really well the
It's a
second
great
half.
tackle by Jimmy Ward too.
So
He don't
you'll
he
pause it here. So I'm gonna have a bunch of different notations. So be ready to pause.
got you, bro.
Because I was remembering our conversation we had about the complexity of the defense, and so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to break this down because this takes a little bit of time, and really kind of lay out for people exactly what it means when we say complex defense. Because this was a defense that I saw us run almost every single first and second down in the second half. And Fred Warner talked about that in his press conference. He said, he thought they ran the same one. He couldn't remember every exact play. They blitzed once, I think, on first or second down. Everything else was running this coverage, this defense. And because we were primarily running man, and then we ran this coverage, which is a 4 palms or two, sometimes called 2 read. It depends on whose defense it is. Nick Saban calls this cover 7. But this is a pattern matching coverage, zone coverage. And one way you can tell this, so if you guys are watching, if they ever have the camera out back enough, you're watching the game live, if you see our safeties align like this is most likely this coverage. And we run this a lot, and we've moved to this. The league is moving to this. This comes a lot from Vic Fangio. Brandon Staley runs this a lot. So we're going to talk about it. First way to tell is that usually the safeties are lined up inside shade of the number 2 receiver. Okay, so that's the second receiver from the sideline. So you see both safeties are lined up inside shoulder of the number 2 receiver, and then you can play it, and it'll go to the next notation. And they're usually lined up at 10 to 12 yards deep. And I've got that there, so you can see Hufanga is there. Gibson's 1 yard deeper. Okay. Generally, every single playbook that I've seen Palms coverage in has this notation: inside shade of the number 2, 10 to 12 yards deep. So that's one clue that you can get to that this is the defense's run. You can play it, and we'll keep going. Should change it. Okay, so there's the number 2 receiver. That's the reason why it's called 2 read is because this defense is based upon what those receivers do.
Mhm.
Okay, so you play it and you'll see why. So if the number 2 receiver has an outbreaking route less than 5 yards, 5 yards or less, then those corners, you can play it. Those corners are going to squat and they're going to attack those, and you play cover 2. The safeties go into half field, and you basically are in a cover 2 zone. Okay, so
Well, what make so because I look at this and I'm thinking cover two, but it all depends on what they do.
correct. Okay,
Aha, aha.
so again, it's if that number 2 comes
Number
out
two
with
receiver.
anything less than 5 yards,
Yep.
then they're going to squat on it.
Then you're
Okay,
playing cover two.
then it's you're going
So
cover 2.
so when we
Okay.
say palms, does that mean cover four palms?
Palms was more of it's just a terminology that's out there.
Okay.
Um, I know Pete Carroll used it a lot. Ed Donatel used it a lot, even back with the Packers in the
Okay.
early 2000s. I saw it in his playbook the other day. Um, it just depends on which system it's in, what they call it.
Got
Like
you.
I said, Saban calls it cover 7.
Cover seven,
So
right.
yeah, so you can play it, and you'll see. We'll keep going through this. What happens? So okay, so if that number 2 goes past 5 yards, it turns into cover 4 zone.
See,
So
this is
those
dope. This is
so
dope.
the hook guys, which
Mhm.
are Greenlaw and Ward,
Well,
now convert to curl flat. Okay, so instead of covering between the numbers and the hash marks, they're going to be responsible for anything that goes towards the flat. So this affects the entire defense. So the corners are going to be going into quarter, deep quarter, and same with your safeties. Okay, keep playing it.
this is crazy, bro. So it all depends on those two receiver, the
On the
those
number 2 receiver. And
number
so
two
if the number
receivers.
2 receiver goes beyond 8 yards, now you can pause it.
Yep.
If the number 2 receiver goes beyond 8 yards, the safeties pick up the number 2 in man coverage.
Got you. So they
Okay.
cover those two
So
guys.
they cover those 2 guys, and then the corners convert to man coverage on the number
Mm-hmm.
1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this all has to
Dang.
be read post snap. So when people
Dang.
wonder why are young guys like Womack not in there, why is a guy like Ambry Thomas not in there as much? It's
That's a
because
lot
this is a lot on them. Why is Gibson still in there? Why are we putting Ward in the slot?
because he's
Okay,
more able to understand the assignment.
right. Okay.
Ah,
There's so much in here of complexity of this. And this changes depending on where the splits are. If it's a condensed split on one side, you'll have one side that's in palms, you'll have the other side that's not. And the safeties have to understand that. So, you play it and we'll end up seeing this play, and I'll point out where the eyes are because you'll see this play out. Oh yeah, and so if the backside safety, I have this noted. If the backside safety, pause it there. If the backside safety is not threatened by the number 2, then he actually moves to double
the
the
number
the
one.
other side number 2.
Uh,
It's called clamp coverage. So if there's any
oh,
in breaking route from the other side number 2, then he helps double on him underneath the route. The play side safety. So say that's a deep post.
yep.
Gibson would play over the top of it. Hafunga would then play underneath it and clamp that. So you have a 3-on-2 if they do like a double post concept. So the corner takes the outside post, and then Gibson and Hafunga double the inside post. So you end up getting I believe that was what Saban calls as a clamp coverage on that. So that's where it also comes in, is that your safeties have to be able to understand if they're not threatened, then where do their eyes go? A lot of this is eye discipline, and so you play it, and you'll see this eye discipline play out throughout the play. That there's so much to how we end up holding the Chargers to very little yardage. So you play it, and you should go into the play here.
This is crazy, bro. It's a lot. That's complicated, man.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
complicated.
So the number 2 is threatening deep. So first, we'll pause it here. So Ward, he squeezes the seam, which is his
Mm-hmm.
job. But look at his eyes. He's looking to the flat route. Look at Gibson, Lenore. They're both reading the number 2 receiver.
Correct.
Okay. They're not reading. Lenore isn't even reading his man. He's reading the number 2 because he needs to see if he's got cloud coverage or if he's going to convert to man.
Okay.
Okay. So that's why he's dropping like this. Ward sees that the number 2 is reading the number 2 is going deep, and so he's converting the curl flat. Look at
Right.
Greenlaw up at the top. He's not. He's still in his hook zone because there was no vertical route from his side. There was no nothing to trigger
Him to
Ward
move.
out of cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is where that defense, like, there's so many moving parts. So now, the Chargers are trying to work this 2 verticals down there. We end up being able to pass that off, pick up the 2 verticals, and then so he has to check it down. The key on this defense is you have to end up coming up and making solid tackles. So Terrerdome, nice comment here. Mod, man outside and deep. That's one way to put it. I know Saban uses mod for man on demand. So he will say in Saban's system, what it is once that receiver goes past 7 yards, the number 2 goes past 7 yards,
You man
then
up.
you're in man coverage to, like, the safety will man up to number 2,
Mm-hmm.
and the corner will man up to number 1. Sometimes he has a meg call, which is man everywhere you go, and that is a call where they're just in man before the snap. So it's based upon where it is. But yes, so this is the complexity of the defense. So they swing it out to the running back, and then look at the tackle that Jimmy Ward makes here.
Yeah, this tackle was amazing.
Okay, and he had several like this. Afunga was doing this. I was just noting Greenlaw there. Sorry, I forgot I put that note in there. And they check it down, and then boom,
Crack right on Eckler. He's right there.
get it. Okay, that is what you have to do to run this defense. And this is why. Why do we have Jimmy Ward in the slot? Because of this defense.
And
Because
because
of
he's
this.
able to comprehend it.
Exactly. And see
Gotcha.
it post snap, understand the role in the defense,
So
so all
I
this
gotta
stuff.
I gotta ask the question then, why does he get beat? Like why does he give up 16? Why is he 16? Why are they 16 for 16 on him? Are you concerned about stuff like that? I don't think it matters. I mean, he's playing in the slot. It's kind of hard to defend the slot when it's just a quick slant and the
Yeah.
guy catches it. As long as he doesn't get 30, 40, or even 5 yards off of it, I'm good. But why does it seem like he's getting beat? Like, so in the beginning of this game, Gerald Everett was having a day.
Right. So we were playing a lot of man coverage, and one thing that Jimmy Ward and maybe it's the hand, if him not being able to get to jam as well as he's normally been, because he's normally a jamming kind of man coverage guy, but he's also not like a great man coverage guy. He's a good man coverage guy. He's not a great man coverage guy. He's the guy that you put on a tight end, not a really shifty wide receiver. So what Jimmy Ward gives you is the ability to do man pretty well, zone very well. What you risk when you have guys like Womack in there, or if Ambry Thomas isn't able to grasp all this stuff on the outside, what you risk is that you're stuck only being able to do man. And if they're not doing man really well, if you have a bad matchup with them, then you're stuck with you can't do anything well. I think the deal with Ward is about who's your best 11. How do you get your best 11 on the field to be able to run your defense? Because I mean, his tackling ability, the dude was just swallowing up tackles all game long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just this play; it was a number of plays. So he's a great tackler.
Correct.
I don't think he really does enjoy being in the spot, but if you're D'Amico Ryans, I don't blame him. Like, this makes sense. So I would like to see us have a little more flexibility in man coverage, but again, that wasn't the plan going into the season. The plan was to have Emmanuel Mosley on the outside, and you have Lenore in the slot. But we're making do with what we have. So, and you see in the second half, when the defense can get dialed in and when you can play this coverage. And again, this is a coverage that is really sweeping through the league right now. And I think you're going to see more stout defensive tackles in the league because of this, because what this tends to do, as you saw with the safeties, is your safeties have to sit 10 to 12 yards deep. And so that means lighter boxes, but that means that you need bigger bodies. A great way to think about it would be the 2011 to 14 49ers with Vic Fangio. That's where a lot of this comes from. And And we played a lot of 7-man boxes because we had a stout defensive line and we had Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. That's why that defense was so phenomenal. I think going forward for us, the best thing we're going to see going forward that will take this defense to an elite level is you get Armstead back, and if Kinlaw can come back, that's a big if.
Okay.
But those things help you stay in this defense more, because once we were able to hold the Chargers in the run game on this, because you're going to give up a lot of short completions with this. If you can keep them out of 3rd and 4, you're good.
It's because your safeties are playing far back, right? Like
well, I mean, they're playing with basically think about it like corners playing with a 10-yard cushion.
Yeah, it's the cushion.
If your corners, if your corners are playing with a 10-yard cushion, nobody's going deep on them, right?
Right.
I mean, unless they're Josh Norman. But
but Josh Norman gonna make you fumble it after you catch it. I'm just playing.
Or get PI.
Or get PI.
But generally that takes away the ability to go deep on you because it's man coverage with a cushion. It's really hard to get a lot of deep routes with that. You end up having to settle for a lot of underneath routes. But if your defense can come up and tackle, you're fine. If you limit them to a 3 and 4 yard pass, okay, fine. If they're not running it for 4 or 5 yards, you're good. Like that's the thing. But you have to be able to do all these things. If you can put that all together, man, it is a tough nut to crack, and it does give you some options for safety fits against wide zone. And I think that's why you're seeing so much of it, because the Shanahan wide zone has been spreading through the league. So in response, I think you're seeing this palms to Reed just sweeping through. Sherman noted that early in the year. He tweeted out about that coverage was pretty much moving through the league and it's cyclical. And I think Daniel Jeremiah tweeted it out today about teams looking at bigger 2-gap defensive tackles because of this defense. It's something that you're seeing go through the league. So hope that helps give some insight into the complexity of the defense and why sometimes people are like, well, put the young kid out there. It can't get worse, or sometimes it's easy to say that. And you go, yeah, but that's where you end up with a lot of busts in coverage because they don't have their eyes disciplined in the right spot. They're not reading things correctly, because this is where the details of the NFL really stick out, because what you'll have is receivers are tasked with running routes at 5.5 yards. And it's going to fake, and they sometimes call it like a choice China or drag China. And the idea is they're going to break out at 5.5 yards and then break back in. And the goal is to get that corner to bite, because then what they're going to do is run a corner route behind it.
There it is.
Okay. And so what ends up happening with that is that if your corner is not disciplined in knowing exactly where that receiver's got to go, and sometimes they teach it on steps. It's not even, 5 yards. It'll be 5 steps or 6 steps. So they've got to count the steps. And it's that repetition. So defenses, like offenses, when they have their details down, they'll put a route at 4.5 yards, because if that corner thinks it's a little bit deeper than it is, then he bails and nobody's there in the flat. So these are the kind of things that, again, young guys have to learn and absorb. And there's so much information. To put it in perspective, like when you look through Pete Carroll's 2013 Seahawks defensive playbook, it's like 163 pages. And it's all of the different, and I mean, they'll have one coverage and then have like 12 pages on that coverage, because it's every little variation that happens that the offense does, that there's a variation on the defense. And so when you have young guys, like there's all of these little things. It's why you saw Hafanga getting in only specific situations last year. And now he's in there full time and he's balling out. Lenore looked lost a lot last year in the early part of the year. Now he's playing really well
because he got in that playbook.
He's right. He's absorbed it all. And that's where Kyle Shanahan said, sometimes now some of the things that these guys say start making sense, because he said it wasn't that Ambry Thomas fell back. It was that other guys leapfrogged him, which tells me that the mental development hasn't progressed
for Ambry.
Yeah, it's stagnated, and Lenore was able to put together all of the mental side of the game. there's so much to it on that. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those that when you look at our defense specifically, there's so many parts to it, and there's so many moving pieces, and there's so much that's tasked about the complexity of the defense, because it has answers for a lot of things, but it requires smart defensive backs that really, really understand and rep it.
Yeah. Okay. And being that we're kind of like young there, I mean, we had it, like mostly end up getting hurt. I think Jason Verrett was another guy that could understand the defense if he was healthy. And Mooney seems to be picking it up, even though he was more of a press man corner.
Yeah,
He's starting to understand zone a lot better too, the concepts, right?
well, that and uh, I'm blanking on defensive coordinator for the Chiefs.
Spag.
Yeah, Spagnola. Spagnola runs palms. I remember seeing it back in 2018 when we played the Chiefs when Jimmy tore his ACL. I saw it a bunch in that game. He runs this, and I got a hold of his playbook at one point, and it's in there. So yeah, so Spags has run it before, and it's part of his playbook. So Ward coming over already understood those concepts. Now they did play man more because Spagnola likes to bring pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And he likes to play man behind it. But when they play zone, they predominantly were a palms to read zone team. They would go single high sometimes and run that 3 zone, but zone mostly was this kind of defense. So that was one thing that I think made Ward a very attractive signing, is because he didn't have to learn this complex scheme.
And it makes sense why they went after him and not maybe any of the big names, because he was already kind of
Right.
into the complexity of the defense. I like that. Good talk, man. Michael Herr has a question for you. He says, I probably missed it, but what happened to Hufanga on the busted coverage?
So, Michael, I cover that in my weekly breakdown video. That was one that was frustrating. It was only a 2-man route, or 2-man play. So they went full max protect, and there was only 2 receivers out in the pattern. Hafunga, we were running a zone dog blitz. So we brought a blitz, and we're playing zone behind it. I think Hafunga, now this is my opinion, I haven't had anything confirm this, but I think what it looked like is Hafunga was guessing that he thought it was going to be what's called a dagger concept, where you run a post or a seam route with a dig in behind it. And it looked like he tried to pass it off like it was going to be a post,
And he got back.
and
He tried to
sit
get
on
back.
and he was trying to sit on the dig. And once he noticed it wasn't going to be a post, it was too late. And so I think he was guessing. The same sort of thing happened on the big completion to Eckler early in the drive. And again, I show it in my
Dre
breakdown video
Greenlaw.
that Drake Greenlaw was guessing it was going to be a flat route by the running back, and he tried to go over the tight end in man coverage when it was a Texas concept, which, I mean, is literally Bill Walsh was doing that. I think he first started that in like 84. It was, if I remember right, the first time that the Texas was in there. I could be wrong on that by a couple of years, but Bill Walsh started that, and which is just an out route from the tight end and a Texas route or an angle route from the halfback. And he tried to go over the top of the tight end to not get interfered with, and the running back was running an angle route, and he was wide open. So yeah,
Wide
so a
open.
couple busted coverages, frustrating on that, and I think that's why we started playing a lot more palms coverage. Just as like, well, look, we're gonna play this zone and force them to throw short, and if they beat us, that way they can beat us, but they couldn't. So
Wow. Just a couple of busted coverages from a couple of young guys. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna happen. Happens.
it does.
I'm glad you brought that up. There was one more play I wanted to ask you about. The There was a similar play to the right side. I felt like it was like an illegal pick. It was the big play Mooney Ward gave up. And you can see them kind of rub against him, but it was legal.
So they never made contact.
You
I know
sure?
exactly what. Yeah, because so Mooney actually did a good job of barely avoiding the contact.
Okay.
It was a pick play, and what should have happened, what I think Mooney should have done is just run right through
Run
the
through and through
receiver,
him. Hmm.
because the receiver. It was like a moving screen in basketball,
That's
okay? Because the receiver got up there and then he took a sidestep to get in the way.
that's
Okay, that is
that's
clear.
illegal.
That is clear and obvious that he is not running a route. So what Mooney should have done is go through the guy's chest, draw the offensive PI. Um, and I mean, he was still in decent position, but yeah, it was the same thing.
But you can
Like,
tell he was rubbed a little bit, not hit, but it rubbed him off of his defensive
oh yeah,
route to
yeah, and
where it
And
was
that's
just
why they,
hard.
yeah, that's why they do. I mean, they offenses call it a rub play, defenses call it a pick play. We're just running interference.
Right.
We're running a route, and it just happens to interfere with the defender's path.
The Patriots used to be notorious for
Oh,
this.
yeah, they well, because Brady was so good against zone that you had to run man against him, and so they would run those pick plays all the time because you had to run man, and that's why then you have pattern matching man coverages, which you pick up the receiver out of the break first. Ryan's calls it banjo coverage.
Mhm.
But the problem with that is you can end up with a linebacker on a wide receiver in man coverage. You don't want, yeah,
Ooh,
that's
bad
where it's,
matchup.
yeah, that's not a good matchup.
Terrible matchup.
So you have to mix and match it. The Patriots are actually Bill Belichick's really, really
Really good.
like so good on defense of teaching his guys how to avoid those pick rub plays. I mean, they are phenomenal at it. They are the best in the league at that without exception.
Yeah.
I've seen plays where teams were running like triple interference routes, and their defenders at post snap will just like it's like fingers just coming through of getting the lane. So yeah. Kyle does run those interference routes all the time. We usually run them off of choice routes. So what we'll do is we'll run like a receiver vertical. Think of the play we all remember George Kittle for in against the Saints 2019 face
Mhm.
mask play. Okay. That was an interference choice route. So the inside receiver was running vertical, and George Kittle was kind of shadowing him. And wherever the defender has to choose one side, okay, because they're in man coverage, he has to choose: was he going to go inside or outside? And the defender ended up choosing inside, and Kittle broke out. So it's an out route. That's a choice route out. So that's one way we love to run interference and pick plays.
I like that. We got a super chat contribution on that. Sean, my brother Sean's in the house. He says, "Do you guys think Jimmy Ward has lost a step? The last 2 years seems he's given up a lot more. How does Kyle change since the Atlanta Super Bowl loss? He lost his aggressiveness. He tries to hold on plays and scared. Ooh, I'm gonna let you take a crack at some of these. I know my thoughts.
Yeah. So when it comes to Jimmy Ward, I don't think so.
Neither do I.
I think it's that he's been, remember he was moved around a lot early in his career. He started out as a slot guy. That's who we drafted him to be. Then he moved to be a corner, and then he moved to safety and pretty much planted there. We're now asking him to move back into the slot after like 4 or 5 years.
Right.
That's a tough move. So, he's also missed a lot of time, was not in the same football shape. It's one thing to do drills on the side. It's another thing to actually be in the game and be forced to change in direction in an instant and to react. And so, there's some of that. As far as Kyle's aggressiveness, I do think he's lost some aggressiveness, but not necessarily in the way we think. I think what he does is tries to think more complementary. And he's talked about this. I remember I think it was in 2020, early 2020, in one of his pressers, he talked about this, that he said he used to call plays a lot more aggressively and throw the ball a lot more because, I think he was referring to his Houston days. He said, yeah, we threw the ball a lot and we scored a lot of points, but we didn't win very many games. He said, because we threw a lot of picks on it. And he said, now as a head coach, I call plays a little bit differently because I think about my defense. Because when I was an offensive coordinator, my only job was to score points. So that's the way I coach and I call plays. He said, when I'm a head coach, I have to think about my job is to win the game. And so he's looking more into, okay, if you run 30 plus times, there's, you have an 80% chance of winning. If you don't turn a ball over, if you don't throw a pick, if you win the turnover battle, you win like 90% of the time. And when you have a really good defense, you say, well, we don't have to be amazing. We don't have to put up 35 points. We can put up 28 points. And if we own the time of possession, if we only give the other team 5 or 6 drives, they're not going to score 28 points. I think that has a lot to do with it. One great example, and you probably saw this when you watched the film, was the first half defensive film was 20 minutes long.
It was 20, bro.
The second half defensive film was 10 minutes long.
I was like, we're done? Yes.
Like, it was literally half as long, and that's 10 minutes for each play in both angles.
And that's how you
Like,
want it to be. You want your
yeah,
offense out there. The offensive film was long. Like, it was
yeah.
long.
The offensive film was, let's see, it was 46
40
minutes
some
long.
Yep, it was long.
46 minutes long. The defensive film was 30 minutes long. That is what Kyle wants. So I think that's what, I've because I saw what Steve Young said today about, he thinks that Kyle wants to be more aggressive like his dad, and wants to put up 500 yards passing and stuff. I'm not bought on that, just from what Kyle has said and the way he's operated. I think he wants to control the clock. I think he wants to run the ball 40 times a game. I really do.
Yeah, my theory or my thought process on this is more of the trust he has in the quarterback. And so I think he's seen like scoring, like you said, as an offensive coordinator, he's seen it. He's seen, the high scores, this, that, with more, I would say, mediocre quarterbacks, and even Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think some of those quarterbacks were better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But on the flip side, I don't think he really fully trusts this guy. And that's okay, because let's just win. Like, right at the end of the day, we
Right.
want this team to win. Doesn't matter if we win by 1, doesn't matter if we win by 30. We just need to win the game, because at the end of the day, the only game that matters is the Super Bowl game. And we're not going to care if we score 55 points in the Super Bowl. We want that to happen, but if we just want to win. And so I
Yeah.
think to go back to what you're saying, I think that is probably some of his process. I don't think he trusts Jimmy to throw the ball 30, 40 plus times.
Well, and if you look at the analytics side, I want to say Jimmy, most of his career here, he's going to throw a pick about every 30 times he passes.
Okay.
So if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're looking, okay, over 2 games, we're going to throw the ball 90 times. That means Jimmy's going to throw 3 picks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at in 2 games, if we have 3 picks, what's our record? So I do think there's something to that. Because one thing that, we also look at with Trey, one thing that Trey did very, very well at North Dakota State was take care of the ball. So if you're looking at, okay, I can get a quarterback who can add something to the run game, who doesn't throw a lot of picks, and you're looking at that, if we run the ball and we take care of the ball, that becomes very attractive.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Sean, thank you for the contribution. Well, listen, Johnny, I know we got to dip up out of here. I got Mo's coming on next. You got your show coming on at 8:30 with Jack Hammer, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right.
8:30, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time.
All right, man. Listen, let everybody know where they can find you. And very quickly after you do that, give us a quick JonnyDel Arizona 49er take.
So, they can find me on Twitter at JonnyDels. That's Johnny with no H. They can find me on YouTube at JonnyDels Football Academy. I will have a breakdown each and every week. And I'm actually going to be putting out a video, hopefully tomorrow morning, of the 3 running plays that we covered tonight. Something that I've seen some people be wondering about, and so I'll just push out a video like I normally do. And what do I think for Monday night? I want to say we're gonna just stomp the Cardinals. I really do.
It's time.
My only concern is that Colt McCoy is so stinking quick with how he gets that ball out. Are they going to sit there and dink and dunk us? I don't think they can run on us.
Not this year.
Thanks, Colin.
Not this year.
If we can force Colt McCoy to have to work the intermediate area of the field, I think we got him, because their offensive line is not great. It's not great. I think Nick Bosa's their tackles are not great. We're going to have a field day. I think it's going to be
a Sackaroonie day, baby.
I think it's going to be 34-13.
Okay, so I'm 28-13. You added 6 more points. That's the 2 field goals. So I don't have us kicking any field goals in this game. I love it.
I'm saying the field goals because it's high altitude.
This is when you want him to kick.
We're gonna get a couple long field goals. So
hey, man, I don't care how we score points. Let's just get these points and get this dub and get the hell out of Mexico City. I love it. Listen, JonnyDel, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for coming on, man. I hope we get to chop it up next week, same time, hopefully same place. I'll be back from Mexico by Thursday, I believe. Yeah, I'm not trying to stay there. I'm trying to
drink
dip
the
out.
water. Don't drink the water.
That's bottled water, right? I could do bottled water.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything? Okay. Bottled water. Make sure it's not crack top either. Guys, thank
Right.
y'all so much for tuning in to These Are the Breaks. We'll see you next week. All right, man. Y'all stay up. Y'all stay faithful. And don't forget to subscribe to the channels, man. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. Peace.